Okay, here we go. Unit 4, Video 3. This time we're going to be working with changing the period for these trigonometric functions. Let's take a look and see how this works on a graph. All right, so our period change, just as a reminder, since we haven't seen it in a couple days, our period change is the B value. That's what indicates that there's been a period change. The standard period for a sine graph or cosine graph is 2 pi. That means that it takes 2 pi in order to complete the entire cycle of a sine curve. And that should come very understandably from our unit circle, that it takes 2 pi to go around and actually pick up all of the values that are possible between the positives and the negatives on the sine curve. It's the same thing for cosine. In order to pick up all positive and negative values of cosine, you must complete an entire rotation around the circle. So when we graph this on a y-axis, we want to or the x-axis, we want to represent all of those values as well. So we have 2 pi. So what we're going to do is if we see a value in front of that x, a b value, we're going to divide by b. And that, therefore, will give us our new period change. If you can recall, if b is a whole number like 7 or 8, we'll end up dividing and our period's going to get smaller. But if our number is, for example, less than 1, our period will get larger and it'll look like a stretch. So let's go ahead and start. Let's try f of x, make this number 1, equals the sine of 2x. Now I'm not going to add any shifts left and right while we're on the video. We're going to do that in class. And I'm also not going to change our amplitude to make it stretch vertically. We're just going to look simply at what happens when we change the period. So if I'm doing this, my v value equals 2. Therefore, the period is 2 pi divided by 2, or a single pi. So since I'm not shifting left or right, my graph will still begin at 0, except it will end at pi. And if I have to mark halfway between here, halfway would be pi over 2. Well, halfway between 0 and pi over 2 is pi over 4. And halfway between pi over 2 and pi is 3 pi over 4. So you're going to have to feel comfortable with these fractions because they're not going away. Now, since I haven't changed this in a vertical direction at all, my y values for the sine are not changing. So I'm going to stick with my 0, 1, 0, negative 1, 0. So the only thing that this affected is how far apart I'm spreading all my points. Now, if you'd like, you may keep this where your 2 pi is the end of the graph, but that means you're only graphing from here to here. So that would give you a very small window to graph in. If you'd rather not do that, I'm going to erase this, and you'd rather just go ahead and change the scale on your axes, then you can actually make your graphs look very similar, except the scale that you're marking. So your markings are very important. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to say this is pi. Halfway between is pi over 2, halfway this way is pi over 4, and halfway this way is 3 pi over 4. So where this normally would look like 2 pi, I've decided to change the scale, which is possible on any graph. I'm going to go ahead and make my range be 1 to negative 1, and I'm going to go ahead and graph all 5 points. And I've now changed the period. Now remember, it looks the same because I kept the same amount of space on the axes, but I changed the scale. Let's try a period change for a cosine graph. So I've got f of x equals the cosine, and this time we're going to do a stretch. So I'm going to have the cosine of 1/2 x. Well, here my b value equals 1/2. So my period equals 2 pi divided by 1/2. And if you remember with fractions, when we divide by 1/2, we actually multiply by 2. So this is a period of 4 pi. Because there's no shifts left and right, we will begin at 0 and we will end at 4 pi. When we have shifts, I won't always begin at 0. I may begin where the shift tells me to begin. We'll work on those together. Halfway between is 2 pi, then I have 1 pi and 3 pi. Now here you'll really see that this graph over here has a period of pi, but I'm going to make the same space actually represent 4 pi this time. So your markings are more important than your the amount of space that's being used. My cosine graph, still going from -1 to +1. Oops, I didn't even put those points on here. We have 1, 0, -1, 0, and +1 because that didn't change at all. That's why I was so ready to get them on the graph, because they didn't change. And then we can connect this to make our cosine curve. And we've got it. Again, this space here represents pi, but the same space here represents 4 pi. I've just changed the scale with my period. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with 2 last ones, and I'm not actually going to even do these. I'd like you to try them on your own so that we can check them out. And what I think is most important here is that you get the x values right in your chart so that you can put the x values right when you get to your axes. So we will definitely be looking at those first thing tomorrow. So here you go. Number 3, f of x equals the sine of 4x. And let's do f of x equals the cosine, let's make it tricky. 1/3 pi. X, why did I say pi? 1/3 x. All right, try those. Remember what happens with b, and make sure you start with 0 and end where your new period tells you to end. Go ahead. See you tomorrow.